What would it feel like if the piano suddenly went silent and one of the last golden voices of the 1950s and 60s was no longer there to sing? Imagine a quiet church filled with soft music, flowers surrounding a grand piano, and generations of fans remembering the melodies that once defined their youth. The day the world gathers to say its final goodbye to legendary singer and songwriter Neil Sedaka will not just be a funeral, it will be a moment when decades of music, memories, and friendships come together in one deeply emotional farewell. For more than 60 years, Neil Sedaka's voice has echoed through radios, concert halls, and the hearts of millions. Songs like Calendar Girl, Breaking Up is Hard to Do, and Laughter in the Rain didn't just become hits, they became part of people's lives. They played during first dances, heartbreaks, and unforgettable moments. So, when the time eventually comes for the music world to honor him one last time, it will be more than the passing of a singer. It will feel like the closing of a remarkable chapter in music history. The ceremony would likely bring together some of the biggest names from the golden era of pop music, artists who shared stages, studios, and stories with Sedaka for decades. Among them, one presence would stand out in particular: Paul Anka, a lifelong friend and fellow legend whose own music journey ran alongside Sedaka's for much of their careers. Paul Anka and Neil Sedaka were part of a generation that shaped modern pop music. Both began their careers at a young age, writing songs that captured the emotions of an entire generation. Their music was melodic, heartfelt, and timeless. Over the years, they shared not just the spotlight, but a deep mutual respect for each other's talent. If Paul Anka were to attend Sedaka's final farewell, it would be a moment filled with emotion. Fans can easily imagine the scene: Anka quietly walking into the service, perhaps pausing for a moment beside Sedaka's family, reflecting on decades of memories. Two artists who once stood at the top of the charts, now separated by time, but forever connected by music. During such a farewell, stories would undoubtedly be shared about Sedaka's incredible journey. Born in Brooklyn, New York, he showed musical talent from an early age. His love for classical piano eventually blended with pop songwriting, creating a unique sound that helped him stand out during the early days of rock and roll. His partnership with lyricist Howard Greenfield produced some of the most memorable songs of the era. Together, they created hits that climbed charts around the world. At a time when the music industry was rapidly changing, Sedaka proved that heartfelt melodies and relatable lyrics could stand the test of time. But his career was not without challenges. Like many artists of his era, Sedaka faced moments when musical trends shifted and his popularity seemed to fade. Yet he refused to disappear. Instead, he reinvented himself, returning in the 1970s with new hits that once again placed him at the center of the music scene. That comeback proved his resilience and passion for music. Those who knew him personally often described Sedaka as more than just a performer. He was a devoted husband, father, and friend, someone who valued family just as much as the spotlight. Behind the fame was a man who remained humble about his success and grateful for the fans who supported him through every stage of his career. At a final farewell ceremony, those personal stories would likely take center stage. Friends, fellow musicians, and family members would share memories of laughter, late-night songwriting sessions, and unforgettable performances. Each story would paint a picture of a man whose life was filled with creativity and kindness. For Paul Anka, the moment would carry even deeper meaning. Having experienced the same era of music, the same touring life, and the same pressures of fame, Anka would understand better than most what Sedaka contributed to the world. Their careers often mirrored each other's paths, young stars rising during the early years of pop, navigating changing musical landscapes, and remaining respected icons decades later. Fans might imagine Anka stepping forward to share a few heartfelt words, perhaps recalling their earliest days in the industry or the first time he heard Sedaka play the piano. Those memories would remind everyone present that behind every legendary song is a human story of friendship, ambition, and dedication. And, of course, music would be an essential part of the farewell. It's easy to imagine Sedaka's own songs softly playing throughout the service, filling the room with the melodies that made him famous. Each note would serve as a reminder that while artists may leave this world, their music continues to live on. For fans, that is perhaps the most comforting thought. Neil Sedaka's songs have already traveled through generations. Parents introduce them to their children, and those children will likely pass them on again. The music does not fade, it simply finds new listeners. As the ceremony ends and loved ones step outside into the quiet air, the legacy of Neil Sedaka would remain stronger than ever. His voice, his piano, and his songwriting brilliance would continue to echo in the hearts of millions. And somewhere in that moment, perhaps Paul Anka and other legendary friends would pause, reflecting not just on a goodbye, but on the extraordinary life of a man who helped shape the soundtrack of their era. Because when the world finally gathers to say farewell to Neil Sedaka, it won't truly be the end of his story. It will simply be another verse in the timeless song he left behind.